All right, shalom, shalom. I'm going to start off this video by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone that rule well, that teach well, while learning truth 100% according to the Bible. I also want to say shalom to the elect, the 144,000 men, prophet, servants scattered abroad the four corners of the earth, and shalom to you, Akwaf, which are you sisters that are sincere in your children. Shalom. And then today's video is going to be called America is a Sinking Ship, right? So I got this video here from the brother, the Hopeful Elect 3, and I'm going to kind of be building off of this video where you basically got this guy talking about the downfall of America's economy, man, and how bad things really are. Why you got a lot of people here in this country thinking that everything is normal and things are good. This place is going down the drain day by day. You know, things are constantly getting worse over here. You know, the debt that this country is ultimately in is going higher and higher, you know, day in and day out. You know, those tariffs and things of that nature that ultimately Trump has put in on those other different nations are ultimately affecting this place's economy. So I'm actually go to a precept that I got right here, right? This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. And I'm going to get straight to the point. This is verse 3. It says, "For when they shall say peace and safety," right? "then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape," right? And that's what's going to happen very soon. Because like I said, you know, a lot of these people here in America, they think everything is cool. They looking at all of the things that are ultimately taking place around the world with all of these events that are happening. And they thinking that this stuff will never affect them here at home, here in Babylon the Great. They don't think they'll ever see bad times here in this country, man. But they're sadly mistaken, because right along while you got Trump talking about, you know, America's going to be great again and all of these different types of things, this place, America, is going downhill, man. This place is getting ready to collapse, you know, and we know that it's coming because that's ultimately all a part of prophecy, man. Because in order for them to bring in that new digital system, they ultimately had to crash this system that we're currently up under, you know, and that's prophecy. So we know it's going to happen for that MOTB to be made mandatory. So we know that America's economy is going to collapse sooner or later, man. This place is, you know, holding on by threads as is. That's why you got so many different nations and countries around the world ditching the U.S. dollar, right? And they're joining the BRICS nation. And they're joining all type of other different parties, you know, where they get a better deal at, because they know this place, America, is going down, man. That is only a matter of time, man, before this place is done. And they know that. That's why everybody is leaving this place now, man, and joining other parties and other people, man, you know, and surrounding themselves with better people, you know, because they know that this economy is ultimately going to go down sooner or later, man. That's why you got so many billionaires, you know, people like Warren Buffett and a lot of these other different type of, you know, people that invest a lot of stuff into this economy and the stocks and things like that. They're leaving and getting out of this place, America, as well, because they know it's only a matter of time, man. But the only people that seem to not know are the people here in this country, man. Mainly our people, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, man. You know, they're not worried about how this economy is doing and things of that nature. They thinking everything is going to be good every single day, but these people are sadly mistaken, man, because all of these things in which it is that they ultimately see now is getting ready to come to an end, man, right? And I'm gonna keep reading. This is verse 4. It said, "But ye brethren," right, meaning us hopeful elect brothers and sisters, right, "are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief." And it's not, because guess what? We're watching these things, you know, we're watching the stock markets, we're watching and see how the economies around the world are ultimately doing and things of that nature. You know, brothers are watching the prices of gold and seeing that it's constantly keeps skyrocketing. And we know that once gold reaches a certain level, as the Apostle Tahar said, then that's when war pops off. That's when the economy collapses and all of these different types of things. That's what we're watching for. And we know is ultimately going to happen, right? That's why we're not in the dark. So we know that when these things actually do begin to take place, that, hey, we knew it was going to happen, man. But these people that are in the world, right, these things are going to overtake them as a thief, man, because they're ultimately not watching and paying attention, man, you know. So this is verse 5. It said, "Ye are all the children of light and all the children of the day," right? "We are not of the night nor of darkness," right? We're not in the darkness. So guess what? We're not going to be, you know, just walking around here in this place, America, walking around, you know, in a state of, you know, being ignorant like the rest of our people are, man, not watching and paying attention to what's happening around them. No, we're going to be in a sober state of mind, being circumspect, you know, watching and seeing the things that are ultimately taking place, right? And it says, verse 6, and it says, "Therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober, right? And that's what Yahweh Shem Yahushua have told us to be doing in these times, man, to be watching as well as praying. And that's what we need to be doing now more than ever, seeing that there's a lot of things that are ultimately happening in this society that are being swept under the rug. And ultimately, you got to really do research to find these things, because these are things that, the media and these people that are in power are going to try to ultimately hide from the people. They don't want you to know these things that are taking place. They don't want you to know America's economy is collapsing. This is the stuff that they ultimately try to keep away from the people, man. But like I said, we're not in the darkness, so we know that these things are going to come, right? But this is 1 Peter 4:7. It said, but the end of all things is at hand, right? Because it's coming to an end, man. This place, America, this world, as these people know it, everything working in their favor, things being good in this society, everything being on the up and up and all of that different type of stuff. All of that is coming to an end and is at hand, right? But only those, like I said before, that are in the light can see these things. Everybody else that's walking in darkness, they don't think these things are going to happen, right? It says, be ye therefore sober, right? And watch until prayer, right? So I'm going to get into the video so we can basically hear what it is the guy's saying. Bear with me. I'm going to say fair use on 1976 Copyright Act. Not getting paid for this video. This is only for educational purposes, only fair use.
We're not avoiding collapse. We're mid-collapse. What we're witnessing now is a slow motion fall cushioned only by illusion, distraction, and digital dopamine. And if you're still living like the system is solid, dependable, and recoverable, you're asleep at the wheel of a burning car. Let's start with the basics. The United States government is over $34 trillion in debt. That's not just a number. That's more than the entire US GDP. That means if we took everything the country makes in a year, every product, every service, every paycheck, every transaction, and gave it to the federal government, it still wouldn't cover the debt. And worse, we're borrowing just to pay the interest. In 2024.
Right. So I'm going to finish letting the video play, but I'm going to get another scripture real quick. But we see what it is that the guy's basically talking about, man, that, this place, the United States, is, it's a ship that's sinking, man. This place is like the Titanic, and it's just waiting to go down at the right moment, right? Which is all according to prophecy. We know that this place will go down, right? But I'm going to get this precept right here. This is ultimately why we don't worry about trying to ultimately, build a life up over here like the rest of our people are ultimately trying to do there, in that spirit of trying to invest, save, store up treasures upon this side, getting money and, being a big shot and all of these different types of things that Jake and Eve mind is focused on, getting a bachelor's degree and owning businesses and things of that nature. Not saying that anything is wrong with that, but that's just not the main focus of the men of the Lord, right? Our mindsets in these times, knowing that we know that these things are soon about to be taken away anyway in the very near future. That's just not what you want to really be putting all of your time and energy into, man. Because this country is done, man, and everybody can see it, right? So I'm gonna go to this precept, right? This is Matthew chapter 6, verse 19, and this is what we should be doing in these times. Of course, speaking to myself first and foremost, but also as other hopeful elect brothers and sisters, doing more spiritual things, man. Because as we look around this place, America, we see that it's only a matter of time before this place is finished, man. Because they're going to have to bring in that digital system, man, and they're really wanting this collapse to take place, man, because that's going to be the event that they need to switch over this new system, man. Right. So this is St. Matthew chapter 6, verse 19. It said, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth. Right. So that's the main point of why you don't try to focus on, trying to get everything in which it is in this world, man, especially in this place, America. You don't focus on trying to build up a good life in this place. We're satisfied with the daily bread in which it is Yahweh Shem Yahushua gives unto us, allowing us to have a roof over our head, having food in our mouths, things of that nature. The simple things that the Lord gives us. We don't worry about all of the extra necessities and things of that nature that these people ultimately in this place are seeking after, because we know soon to come that, like the guy in the video is saying, that this stuff is all going to come to an end very soon, man. And these people that have these ties to these things, right, they're going to ultimately end up taking that chip, man, and conforming to the new system, man, right? And it says, where moss and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal, right? Like I said, because everything in this society over time, it becomes corrupted, man. It either gets thrown away, it get used up all the way, and then you don't have need of it. That's what all of these things in this society does, man, right? But storing up your treasures in the heavens, right? Those are things that'll never be moth-ridden or corrupted or never be taken away, man, because Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai is keeping tabs of those things that we are ultimately doing for him, man, you know? So it says, Matthew 6:20, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, right? And that's what us hopeful elect brothers and sisters are trying to do to the best of our abilities, you know, storing up those spiritual treasures, you know, by prayer, by fasting, reading the word, supping with Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, and doing those things in which it is that we know is pleasing unto our power, man. Because, hey, when this collapse happen, and it is going to happen, we're going to want to, you know, ultimately receive our spiritual credit that we have stored up. Yahweh Ratazah, we be able to elect in these times that are coming, man, because we know once this system crashes, you know, then that's going to bring all hell and chaos to these streets of Babylon, man, right? But it says, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal, right? Because ultimately, we know that no one can ultimately go up to the heavens and take the things in which it is from the Heavenly Father, man, because he's in control of all things. Nobody can go up to the heavens and ultimately, you know, try to take something from Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai. No, so we know that our treasures that we're storing up there in the spiritual realm are being concealed. They're safely kept, man, right? And I'm going to go to verse 21, right? This is the last verse. It says, for where your treasure is, right, there will your heart, meaning your mind, be also. And that's why a lot of these people in the very near future, they're going to bug out, man, because they have all of their mind, right, and their energy and time focused in this place, America, which is slowly going down the drain. And these people don't have no idea that is going on because, like I said earlier, these people are in the dark, man. They're not paying attention to these things, man, worrying about what's going on with the stock market and what's to happen in the very near future. No, these people worrying about today and today only, man. These people are not thinking about longevity, what's to come in the very near future, man, you know? So, yeah, I'm going to get this precept as well, just touching on that about the economy collapsing, right? This is Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 10. And it said, and it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, right? We're just talking about this place, America, this country, man, right? When these people begin to see that everything over here is not what they thought it was to be, man. When they see this economy collapsing and all of these things getting worse over here, right? And then howling from the second and a great crashing from the hills. And that's going to be America's economy in the very near future, man, that this place is going to be crashing. But only those ultimately, like I said earlier, who the Lord has given the eyesight through, you know, that has the understanding and know the time and season that we're in. They're the only ones that can see this crash coming from a mile away, man. The rest of these people don't see it. That's why it's going to come upon them suddenly, man, you know. And they're going to be overtaken by it, right? Because they're not going to know what to do. They haven't been preparing themselves spiritually for these times. And like I said earlier, also, they're going to conform to that system. Because we know ultimately once this system does crash, is that digital system that these devils ultimately are going to implement to bring in that might be is going to come soon as well. Right. And that's what's going to make so many people take the chip. Right. Because they're not going to know what to do. Right. They're just going to have to conform to this new society that this devil's ultimately bringing. And I'm actually go to that precept, man, through the spirit, because this is ultimately what everything is leading up towards, man. You think these devils at the top don't want this system to collapse? That's all part of the agenda anyway, to bring forth that MOTBC hip, you know. And right along with you having RFK Jr. coming out and basically saying in the news that by the next 4 years, everybody in America is going to be wearing a wearable, which we know that's code word for them talking about that C-hip, man. Right. So this is what everything is leading up towards, man. You know, the crash of the dollar, all of those things are going down and happening ultimately for them to bring in this chip, man, which is a part of prophecy. Right. This is Revelation 13:16. Right. And it said, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor. Right. Free and bond to receive a mark in their right hands or on their foreheads. And that word mark in the Greek goes to charagma, right? Which is a stamp, you know, or an imprint, you know, and that's basically what this devil is going to put inside of people's right hand or on their foreheads, man, right? In order for them to function in this digital society that he's ultimately about to bring and all of these different things that he ultimately has in store. You know, that's what these devils are about to bring about, man, right? And it's really how by Shem Yahweh Shai is bringing it. He's ultimately the one that's bringing the collapse. You know, the Lord is the one that's bringing forth all of these evils into the earth, in which it is that we ultimately see occurring and that ought to come, you know. And this is verse 17. It said, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name, right? And that goes back into what I read earlier, about storing up treasures in the heavens, man. Because everybody that have ultimately stored up all of their cares and their possessions and things of that nature that they ultimately love and that's dear to them upon this earth, right? They're going to conform to this new system, man. When this place, America, does crumble and collapses, man, they're going to be looking for handouts from their father, the government, and he's going to come in with that MOTBC up, and a lot of people are going to take it, man, due to them not ultimately having another choice or not having hope in the Lord and not trusting in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. Mainly our people, right? The 2/3 of them, they're going to conform to Esau's new system, man. And that's where we see everything ultimately leading up towards, right? That's why America's economy continues to get worse and worse and worse, because that's ultimately the goal of these elites, man. They want that American dollar to collapse, man, because then they can bring in that chip. And ultimately, we want it to happen as well, because we know ultimately once that comes into play, then prophecy speeds up quicker and quicker. So we really want this system to hurry up and to collapse as well, But yeah, I'm going to get back into this video real quick so we can just finish listening to what the guy's saying. But that's what everything goes back to, brothers and sisters, this economy collapsing, everything in which it is that we see happening with the whole American system is leading up to that MOTB being made mandatory, because that's the end goal of these elites, man, which is to establish their new world order, but we know ultimately that won't fulfill, that it won't succeed, as it tells us right here in this scripture right here. This is Job chapter 20, and I'm going to start at verse 23, right, in the KJV, and it says, right, when he is about to fill his belly, right, talking about Esau, when he ultimately, does crash this system, when Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua put the spirit on him to do away with the dollar, and he does bring in that C-hip, right, it says, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. So right along when he thinking that everything is going in his favor and everything is all good in the neighborhood, then the Lord is going to allow his fury to rain down upon this man's queendom, right, via those nuclear missiles, right? So that's what's going to come to America, man. But we know ultimately that this economy and this society will collapse, man, and everything that we see happening in the economy is setting the stage for it, man. That's why you keep hearing them talking about in the news that, cyber attacks and all of these different types of things of that nature keep getting talked about, because this is ultimately what they want to, prepare the people's minds for, because they know that collapse is coming, right? But I'm going to get back into the video.
Pay the interest. In 2024, we passed $1 trillion per year in interest payments alone. That's over $3 billion per day paid to banks, foreign nations, and investors just to keep pretending the machine is still running. Where's that money coming from? The answer is simple. The Federal Reserve is creating it out of thin air. This process, known as quantitative easing, it's just a fancy way of saying we're inflating the money supply to delay the inevitable. It's modern alchemy. But unlike ancient gold, this alchemy decays value. It dilutes every dollar in your bank account. Since 2020 alone, over 40% of all US dollars in existence were printed. Let that sink in. Almost half of the money in circulation today did not exist just 5 years ago. And you wonder why groceries, rent, and gas are off the charts? But this isn't just about the economy. The entire governmental structure is built on sand. Congress is dysfunctional. Executive agencies operate like private kingdoms. Lobbyists write the laws, and both political parties are little more than competing brands of the same broken oligarchy. We don't have representation. We have regulatory capture. Just look at how banks write banking laws, how Big Pharma funds the FDA, how defense contractors shape foreign policy. The military-industrial complex isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a business plan, and every war, every conflict, every arms deal is profit. Then there's the dollar itself. Once, the undisputed king of global trade, but now, BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are actively moving to de-dollarize. They're building alternatives to SWIFT. They're trading oil in yuan. They're launching gold-backed settlement systems. The petrodollar, which for decades forced the world to buy oil with U.S. currency, is unraveling. And when the world no longer needs our money to buy oil, the dollar will lose global demand. That's when the inflation we export to other countries comes flooding back home. This is the real
right. And you hear what he said. And like I said, that's what they ultimately want to happen. Because, right, that's going to give them the excuse that they need ultimately to bring in this new system, man, which we know is all part of the agenda of these elites, man, which is to bring in that MOTBC up, as I said earlier, you know. So that's what all of these things in which it is that we ultimately see is leading up towards, man. You know, nothing is done by coincidence, you know. All of these things are already being set up by these devils on the left-hand side, man, mainly by Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. But Esau Edom on the left hand is doing these things as well, ultimately trying to think he's fulfilling his agenda, which, as I read earlier in Job chapter 20, verse 23, that when he think he's about to fill his belly, right, when he think that everything is going according to his plan, then the Lord is going to rain down upon this devil, man. But as I said, also, you know, this is why we ultimately, us brothers and sisters of the hopeful elect, knowing these things, knowing that this place America is a stack of cards that's bound to fall, we don't store up treasures upon this place. We just, you know, be okay with our daily bread that the Lord ultimately gives us. We're satisfied with, you know, the little jobs we do have, being able to support the families and things of that nature. But we don't store up riches upon this place, man, because we know that all of this stuff very soon is about to be done away with, man. That dollar that these people in this economy worship and idolizes, that is about to be of no value, man. In the coming future, people are going to be burning that money to ultimately to keep themselves warm, man, in these times that we're coming into, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say with today's video. Lord's willing to be edifying. Till the next time, I'm going to say shalom.